Hi, so good day. My name is Gisa. I'm a registered psychologist and the Chief Operating Officer of WellAtSea. We are a full-service implementation solution that helps organizations safeguard the mental and physical well-being of crew. Today, I will be sharing with you cases from the WellAtSea platform to show you clear examples of how companies have used the WellAtSea solution, made it their own, and increased engagement on board. I will also be elaborating on the key ingredients I believe can create a sustainable crew wellness program. So there are three cases that we can take a look at today, each answering a particular question. The first case asks us, is it possible to change the culture on board a ship that encourages health and well-being amongst its crew? The second case will explore how we can launch a remote program in a pandemic and the underlying themes derived from qualitative data analysis. And our last case will give you a glimpse into using gamification to raise awareness and engagement in CSR efforts. Okay? So the first case asks, how can organizational culture basically change the promotion of health on board the ship? Can the crew sustain health culture and behavior? So we see that the research on the seafarer's quality of life, that organizational culture has a direct effect on a person's sense of efficacy. This means that they trust themselves and that they can basically see themselves through to a particular goal that they set. So would it in fact be possible for health culture to change individuals? Our hypothesis is that the environment on board can influence personal accountability and ultimately the promotion of health. So in this particular fleet, we saw engagement rates change as we began to quantify the initiatives designed by the crew. Basically, we learned that by giving them a chance to lead and create, it was in fact possible for wellness programs to become part of the culture on board. Engagement rates rose to as much as 52% when crew were encouraged to use the point system, come up with their own ideas, and share these with the rest of the fleet. So some examples were the initiative of a wellness magazine, group sharing and debriefing of challenges that they were facing, integrating exercise hours into their time schedules, and so forth. Okay? So the next case is about a recent pilot with 13 ships that were launched in the pandemic. And as you see here, we were not met with much enthusiasm in the beginning. So to help senior officers kind of get over their hurdle of, how do they even do this, we had to help them navigate how they could identify their wellness ambassadors, okay? Because I think from time to time, we also put a lot of pressure on our senior officers to be able to figure these things out. So the team also took time to call the ships, explain the purpose of the program and what was really in it for them. And participation rates rose to as much as 50% and above in the succeeding months because of our continued engagements with them. Now, after 6 months, we conducted a focus group discussion, and emerging themes from the discussion showed us how important this program was in navigating their own mental health, that senior officers learned that having a program to guide them taught them that it was crucial to open up, create safe spaces, and to develop trust in their teams. These were things that they didn't know or even consider before. We also learned that psychological first aid was a big component towards the change that each of these teams actually needed, and that ambassadors realized that they had skills beyond their day-to-day jobs that they could enjoy, like leading a wellness program. And ultimately, it brought teams together and encouraged them to manage their time efficiently to make room for these activities. So survey results also revealed that 79% of crew found themselves improving on their own physical health state. And majority also observed that there were actually less injuries on board during their sailing contracts at this point in time. And our last case shows us how CSR initiatives can have more meaning when you use gamification and involve crew, which actually helps increase participation in wellness programs to as much as 75%. So from November to January of this year, a campaign was launched with the objective to raise awareness towards charities by encouraging teams to participate in the WellAtSea program. So participation meant points, and points earned were points towards a donation. And after 3 months, activities were completed by 1,019 colleagues on ship and on shore. And results from that campaign showed us that 97% of crew on board found these activities not just good for bonding and overall team engagement, but it also gave them a sense of purpose as they contributed to other organizations that they felt they really believed in or wanted to support. It actually also helped them recognize the values of their company and identify with the CSR efforts of the organization. So this case shows us that, with the creativity of the management and the three key pillars of WellAtSea, there are in fact ways that we can encourage camaraderie and community giving on board, which actually helps strengthen the values and the culture of the organization. So it brings me to this. What makes a wellness program? And how do we ensure that efforts translate into sustainable behavior? So based on our experience, here are 5 key ingredients that we think work best. First, we have to define what good looks like. Okay, so good can be active participation, sustainable behavior, and improved health data. This means that while participation can fluctuate because of ship operations and just the realities on board, we can always keep things going and actually develop skills in people that they can use for life. Okay? And you see this across all 3 cases that I just presented. At WellAtSea, good also means evidence-based. Okay? Second, there has to be a seamless collaboration among teams to be able to serve the highest good of the seafarer. So what this is about is that it's about consistent coordination between the client and our project team to be able to drive company culture and values. We particularly see how culture is driven in the first and third cases presented. And it is also about collaboration and open-mindedness in the industry. Now, WellAtSea uses its own content, but we also have been welcoming material that our principals find most interesting from groups like Ice One, Shell, Wellness at Sea by the Sailor Society, and so forth. Now, serving the seafarer actually means collaborating seamlessly for their benefit and encouraging them to be able to use the various resources to increase their own well-being. So imagine having all of these resources under one roof. With a wellness platform like ours, it actually helps make it so much easier to weave together for organizations. And this year, we started inviting voices from the industry to collaborate on podcasts for the seafarers, bringing relevant conversations to the ships. Okay? Third key ingredient is that a good wellness program needs to be flexible, meaning it can be both serious and fun. And as you saw in the second case, there were themes around, stress management and psychological first aid. But the third case also shows us how gamification can enhance CSR efforts. So programs have to be systematic, yes. We cannot just throw things at ships and expect them to change. We need to be able to build on it through time. So at WellAtSea, we've designed modules that encourage teams, to have serious conversations around mental pathology, cardiovascular disease, and, so much more. But a majority of what we do is also about having fun with putting theory into action. And, think of us as your remote team building facility that allows them to play games and to debrief. So basically, because things are serious and fun, we get teams to talk regardless of their cultural background. This actually helps increase psychological safety on board. And research shows that high-performing groups are those with low relationship conflict. So in fact, in the second case, one of the captains shared his experience with a crew member who was not mentally well. And having been given the tools to learn about psychological first aid, he realized how important it was to conduct regular sessions for groups to open up and learn about each other's struggles. In his words, this promotes trust. Fourth, it is not solely the responsible of a it is not solely the responsibility of a senior officer. So a major assumption that we make around wellness programs is that it has to be done by the master. But wellness programs that work are cultivated in environments that allow others to shine regardless of their rank. Wellness ambassadors are nominated because they're seen as enthusiastic, respectable, and genuinely caring. And sometimes it's the captain, sometimes it's not. Now, some of the best ambassadors that we have seen have been the bosun, the oiler, the cadet, the third or fourth officer, engineer. And by having wellness ambassadors, you are actually influencing a positive work environment by allowing them to take on skills that they've likely been wanting to get involved in, but no one ever asked. So we know from the first case that wellness ambassadors can actually help promote the desired behaviors on board, and that they can now create their own initiatives, sustaining this on board the ship. And lastly, data. So a good wellness program consists of like good data. So one way is that the crew need to have a way to, be able to self-monitor and to create clear goals for themselves. So if you use an online platform, it's actually a good way for them to keep track and have a visual on their progress. This actually also shows them recommendations on activities that they can focus on. This is what we call health risk assessment. Now, think of data as, you can also have open source mental health inventories, crew feedback, and health data collection that you gather over 6 months and 1 year periods. These can be very interesting to look at. Now, we believe that health can be taught systematically to be able to drive sustainability. This means that our strategies are evidence-based and supported by proper data collection. So having a platform allows us to gather data on engagement across initiatives. So this brings me to the last minute. How do you know if a crew well-being program is right for you? Well, here are guide questions that decision makers can reflect on before starting their own initiative. I would say ask yourself, is it relevant for me to quantify our efforts and measure our success in the future? Am I willing to change my workplace culture? Can I live with the consequences of continued high health risks at sea? How many years am I willing to invest to ensure improved crew retention, mental resiliency, and respect for human dignity at sea? Wellness programs go well beyond the classroom. We all know this. Let's remember that sustainable behavior change requires the proper implementation partners. So if you know the answers to the questions that I just asked you and would like to know more about the WellAtSea solution, please feel free to reach out to me through my details below. All the best to everyone and happy International Seafarers Day.